The Max Van Auken Podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube or you're listening to it on the podcast platform, thank you so much. I appreciate you either way. Make sure you tell a friend, tell a neighbor, download and subscribe. I'm only going to say it once, maybe twice. 5 stars. Leave a comment. Leave a review. Let me know what you think. I love interacting with you guys. I did have a lot of questions, but there's just so much to cover. I was on the road this weekend visiting some family, and I don't know if I'll be able to get to it this episode. I may be able to get to it, but if not, definitely next episode. We're going to have such a packed week of episodes. Cannot wait. But I just wanted to start off by saying thank you guys. Thank you for joining. Thank you for telling people, because the numbers have been phenomenal. So thank you. I want to start off by saying thank you. I don't think enough people do that, so thank you. Anyway, so I said I missed a lot, and I did miss a lot. There was so much going on in this weekend, and it seems like I say that every time, but I think that's what I love about sports, is that there's always something going on. All the time. I love that. And so we had the NBA Finals. We had UFC, boxing. Talk about an upset. So there's so much to get into, but I want to start off by starting off with the Golden State Warriors. So I was at the airport. I surprised my mom. It's always good when you surprise your mom and make her cry, you know. Just good seeing family, my brother, and my girl and I went up there. So it was a great trip. So we started off, we ended up back at the airport, right? You got to get back to where you came from. So we're back at the airport, and it's game 2 of the NBA Finals. And I'm a sports fanatic, right? I have a sports podcast, no secret there. And I can't miss game 2 of the NBA Finals. It's the Golden State Warriors, it's the Toronto Raptors. So I flip on the game, and I sent a tweet out. You can follow me, Max Van Auken. And in that tweet, I said, mark it down, bet your money on Golden State. For some reason, and I have reasons, which I'll get into, I had Golden State winning. 100%. I just, sometimes you have a gut feeling, and then you have reasoning. But when you have both, that equals as sure as it can get. And for some reason, both of those went hand in hand. And I tweeted out, like I said, follow me. I put it out there. And then I tweeted the score afterwards when I was correct. The Golden State Warriors won game 2. And like I said, a gut feeling with reasoning. So I flipped on game 2. The screen was just abnormally blue, which bothered me. But good thing there was like 3 other screens. So my brother and I were watching it. So I have Kevin Durant out of the Golden State Warriors, right? And it's always easier to reflect. And I've said this since I started the podcast, before I had the podcast, and I'll continue to say it until I'm on the big screen, is it's easier to reflect. But there's a time and place for everything. I like to reflect, but I don't like to spend too much time and looking at the rearview mirror. I like to theorize, I like to project, and I like to look forward. I like to drive forward. I don't like reversing as much as I do driving forward. But anyway, I'm going to reflect for a brief moment here. Watching the game. And when I was watching the game, so Steph Curry, we found out, is sick. Thanks to Doris Burke for releasing that news, covering the game. So Steph Curry's sick, and I found that out after I tweeted. So I'm like, oh gosh, that's not good. Kevin Durant I knew was out, and then they put DeMarcus Cousins in the starting lineup. And again, thanks to Twitter, I tweeted. It's a great date stamping tool. So like I could come on this podcast, I could be on YouTube right now, and I could say a whole bunch of things what I did, and I may never have done it. And you can just believe me or not. Probably most of you would say you're full of crap. But if you go on Twitter, you could see I'm not full of crap. So I went on Twitter and I said, it's going to be really interesting the fact that DeMarcus Cousins is starting for the first time since his injury. So that's very interesting. I may not have said that verbatim. Let me see what I said verbatim, thanks to my iPhone here. Like I said, Max Van Auken. You can follow me on Twitter. And okay, here's the tweet right here. Interested to see how effective Boogie will be in the starting lineup. Right there on Twitter. Screen brightness. Let it adjust. Okay. Boogie had an awesome game, and he's probably the reason why they won this game. And so Steph Curry got sick. I'm like, damn, that's not good. Klay Thompson's injury really scares me. But anyway, so I'm watching this game, and I had them winning this game, and they won. It didn't look good at half. Siakam was hitting a whole bunch of threes. He had a 3 going into the half. I think they were up 10, 9 or 10, and then I had to board the plane. So then once I landed, I immediately turned off my airplane mode, and I got the service back. And I'm like, okay. And the Golden State Warriors won. Felt extremely validated, got confirmation the Golden State Warriors won. I wasn't crazy. So several reasons why I thought they were going to win. One is when you have a team that has showed that they have championship DNA and that they can overcome adversity, never count them out. That's number one. And the Golden State Warriors are the epitome of that. They came back from a 3-1 against the Oklahoma City Thunder. They've been in multiple finals. This is their 5th straight final, so they have veterans. They're not young players who can get too excited, a lot of adrenaline. So you have the Golden State Warriors who have that championship DNA. But then the biggest thing is basketball is about runs and it's about matchups. How do you match up with the team? And can you survive? And can you flourish when you go on a run or withstand a run? Ooh, I'm excited. So the Golden State Warriors did just that. They went on their third quarter run, which was, I think, was like the biggest deficit they overcame, which was 19 points. They went on a 19-0 run. They overcame that deficit. I think it was the biggest deficit since like 1976, since the merger in the NBA. And they had their classic third quarter run. So I knew they were going to have a third quarter run. I just couldn't see it. I was on the plane. Then can they withstand runs? Yes, they can. So are they experienced in the finals? Championship DNA, yes. Or do they feel counted out for the first time in a while since Kevin Durant's not playing? Steph Curry doesn't have a finals MVP. A lot of criticism, a lot of Drake trash talk. That's one of the things that I get concerned about with the Golden State Warriors is their motivation. Do they have a lot of motivation? When you're the best at something, you're going to slack a little bit because you know you're the best. But now here they have a fire lit under them, so they actually have reason to feel, hey, our back's against the walls, a sense of urgency, let's win. So they had that, and that is why they won. The huge third quarter run, Boogie Cousins played extremely well, and of course the stat sheets don't always show everything, but he played extremely effective down late, and the championship DNA. Now, so the reasons and the gut instinct is why they won this game, and that's why I believe they won this game. And I was right. So the Golden State Warriors win Game 2, tied 1-1. Now the fun part is theorizing, right? But before I get into who do I think is going to win Game 3, when I noticed a couple things. At the airport, I sat next to a couple gentlemen, to North Carolina and then back to Florida. One of the people I spoke to, and I understand that's not everybody is a big sports guy. Like I'm either you love me or you hate me as a person, because if you love sports, you're going to love me. If you're like, I'm not that big of a sports guy, you and I probably won't have a lot in common. Yes, I'm really interested in business. I love America's Got Talent. I love Big Bang Theory, Game of Thrones, Walking Dead. I'm a movie and sports guy. So I understand going into a lot of conversations that there's just general sports fans. You don't have to be a fanatic to like sports. And so I'm sitting next to this gentleman, extremely nice, and we talked about the finals. This was before Game 2. And he said to me, there's just nothing like Jordan's Bulls. And you get that a lot, right? Or that LeBron guy, he's pretty damn good. But I noticed something, and I think it's why the Warriors are so great, but at the same time, why they may never be in the discussion as the greatest team of all time. Their weakness, but yet their strength. Steph Curry, in my opinion, is the ultimate warrior. Literally. The ultimate warrior. The quote-unquote loyalty has been with the Golden State Warriors for a very long time, since the beginning. He was there when it was rough to now. He has the greatest shooter of all time, the magnetism, as Rashad would say. He has it all. He's the leader in the locker room. He is the Golden State Warriors. But to the general public, like I was saying, not everybody's a sports fanatic. The general public, they think Kevin Durant's the best player. It's a great all-time team, all-star team. When you think of the Bulls, you think of Jordan. Now, of course, someone who knows sports may say, hey, Scottie Pippen, hey, Dennis Rodman, Steve Kerr, Kukoc. There's a bunch of players. When you think of the Showtime Lakers, Magic Johnson, Kareem. Like, when you think of the Lakers with Shaq and Kobe. Shaq got all those finals MVPs. The Diesel, Superman. Kobe was really good. Kobe number 8. LeBron James, the Miami Heat. Yeah, Dwayne Wade's really good. And he is like the Miami Heat. But during that little run that they had, you think of LeBron James. Back in Cleveland. Kyrie's really good. Hit a huge Game 7 shot. You think of LeBron James. With the Golden State Warriors, I feel people don't think initially Steph Curry. I think they think of the team. And what we like to do as just a society is put faces to everything. Avengers Endgame, you think Thanos. He's the villain. Captain America, Iron Man. But there's an accumulation of superheroes. But you're not going to list every superhero. You're going to say Thanos is the bad guy, Captain America and Iron Man are like the leaders. Game of Thrones, you think Jon Snow? I do. I mean, a lot of people may think Khaleesi because she's very fine, but a lot of people would say Jon Snow. Walking Dead, you think Rick. Or maybe even Negan. But my point is, when you don't have a face to something, I think it limits to what you classify them. Now, to the big sports fans, you do think Steph Curry. But when I talk to family members, I talk to multiple people, I even talk to this guy on a plane, and usually I don't like planes, so I like to stay put to myself, but if it's sports, I'll get in the conversation. And the guy's like, yeah, Golden State Warriors are so good, Draymond Green and Klay Thompson, and I don't think Kevin Durant's playing, and you got Steph Curry. Like, you have Steph Curry. It's not, hey, Steph Curry's the guy. He's not Michael Jordan to the Bulls. So I think that limits how people will view the Golden State Warriors. I think they'll think they're an amazing team, an all-star team, right? Because they have 4 all-stars, and then when DeMarcus Cousins came back, 5 all-stars on one team. You don't just think Steph Curry. You think of the stacked team when Kevin Durant joined the 73-9 Warriors. So you don't have necessarily a face. You think of a general concept of a great team, not just one person. Batman, you think of Batman. So when I thought about that, I think that can hurt them in the general scheme of how they're going to be judged in a historical context. But at the same time, I think that's why they're probably, or maybe, the greatest team of all time. So what may be their downfall, I think, is what's their best attribute, their best gift. The fact that there's not just one guy who, like I said, I'm a Steph Curry guy, but the general public thinks of the team. What's going on right now in the finals? Steph Curry's sick. Kevin Durant may not play. Klay Thompson may not even play Game 3. He was injured. Steph, I don't even think, scored in the fourth quarter. Aging Iguodala, but they still won because of the team, because of the multiple layers in this team. It's not just one guy. If you took LeBron James off the Miami Heat, even with Dwayne Wade, even with Chris Bosh, they're not a dynasty. And I mean, they may not even be a dynasty because they only won two times, 2 championships. I think went to the finals 4 times. But they're not that. You take LeBron James off the Cleveland Cavaliers, Kyrie's extremely talented. Kevin Love was awesome. They're not beating the Golden State Warriors. They're not coming back from 3-1. So even though I think it hurts them that they don't have one particular face, and like I said, I like Steph Curry a lot, and I think he is the ultimate warrior. But to the general public, he won't. The Warriors, I think, will be a general concept when they look back in history because of how great that team was. You don't think of the Warriors like Jordan Bulls, LeBron Heat, Shaq, Kobe, Lakers, Magic Johnson, Kareem, Lakers, Bird, Celtics. You think of the Warriors as a whole group, an accumulation of talent, which will hurt them on the grand scheme of things because you can't put a face to it, but it may be why they're the greatest team of all time because they have so many different layers, and that's why they won Game 2. And that's why they're probably going to win Game 3 depending on if Klay Thompson's going to come back. If Klay Thompson doesn't come back, I think you'd have to bet Toronto, right? Because with Steph Curry being sick, you can't rely on DeMarcus Cousins to be DeMarcus Cousins of old because that was his first start back since his long injury, right? Especially for a big guy. When you're a big guy, you typically don't get better as you get older. It typically gets worse. But that was my thought because I had so many people at the airport just talk about the Warriors, and they really didn't just say Steph Curry. They just said about how great the team is. So I think that it was just an interesting point. And like I said, going into Game 3, I told everyone bet your money Game 2, the Golden State Warriors. Game 3 is a little more, it's a gray area for me. Because I don't think you could really go into it saying one team's going to win unless you know the state and the condition of Klay Thompson. If his hamstring is a serious thing, he misses Game 3, I would bet Toronto. But if he plays, I'd probably bet Golden State because with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson spreads the floor, but the most underrated thing about him is that he plays great defense. So I think let me just let me see the status of Klay Thompson before I tell you Game 3. And then, like I said, follow me on Twitter. I'll tell you, I'll give my prediction before the game as soon as I find out the health of Klay Thompson. Great matchup. Great matchup. But the other thing I noticed is all the injuries, right? So I just mentioned Klay Thompson, DeMarcus Cousins coming off an injury. Kevin Durant's not playing because of an injury. Steph Curry's sick. Kawhi looks really tired. Even after resting all these damn games, he still looks tired. Not everyone's LeBron James. I had to throw that one in there. And I really like Siakam for the Toronto Raptors as the second best player for this team. But even he's inconsistent, right, because he's young. And I said it when I was covering the Orlando Magic. I said it with Rashad. Siakam went from 7 points to 17 points. That's a massive jump. This kid's a legitimate role player in the NBA. I'm not saying he's a perennial all-star, but a legitimate player in the NBA. And one of the things, Rashad tweeted it. He has one of the best Twitters. Follow him, Rashad Phillips. And I completely agree. I was thinking the same thing. 1, 3, and 7 are huge games for Toronto. 1, 3, and 7. Because I figured they'd start off great in Game 1, right? Because it's in Toronto, first finals appearances, Cloud9, Kawhi Leonard, Warriors off the big rest, and then Game 3, if Toronto won, the Warriors won Game 2, the sense of urgency to win Game 3, win on the road like the Golden State Warriors did. And then, of course, if it does go to a Game 7, which I have the Warriors in 6, you, of course, have to win Game 7. But with all these injuries, you have... The two biggest criticisms I have of the NBA is one for the players and one for the league. I'll start off with the players. If a young player wants a max contract, who am I to tell them what to do with that money? And honestly, who am I to tell anyone to do with their money? But of course, it's the opinion business. I'm going to state my opinion. If you're young, get your money, right? Because you want that generational wealth. You're not going to play basketball forever. Get your money. But once you're an established star, hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank, what's 3 extra million really to you? What's 10 extra million to you? It's probably not as much. It's not as substantial as it was when you didn't have money compared to when you became a big millionaire. So everyone complains about the Golden State Warriors and how stacked they are. But you have a lot of players who have opportunities to take pay cuts, and they don't. Like even LeBron. I love LeBron James. If he wants to be the greatest of all time, he wants to beat the Golden State Warriors, take a pay cut. And then instead of just getting 1 big star, 2 big stars, you may be able to get 3 big stars. Why sign the max if you have a $1 billion deal with Nike? All your other endorsements, Beats, the pizza chains, the shows, the shop, he has all these different channels to profit, to make money. Why do you have to get the max contract? You've already gotten that plenty of times. You already have generational wealth for beyond what you can even think of. Take a pay cut, you can get more players. The Golden State Warriors are great because there's a lot of self-awareness, pay cuts. Tom Brady wins a lot of championships. He's not the highest paid quarterback, even though he's the greatest player of all time in the National Football Association. He takes pay cuts because it allows help for him. So that's my biggest criticism of the NBA. Players that have already established generational wealth, take a pay cut if winning's your number 1 priority. The second one is limit the season. Limit the regular season to 65 games. As you guys know, the NBA season's 82 games. That's a lot of games. Kawhi Leonard, I think, missed 20-plus games off of load management, which basically means, hey, Kawhi Leonard has a history of being injured. We're going to say load management, but it really means we just want to make sure he's rested so he doesn't get injured before the playoffs. Steph Curry has an injury history. LeBron James just got his injury. All these great guys. Chris Paul's been injured. Paul George has been injured. Kawhi Leonard, like I said, Kevin Durant, DeMarcus Cousins, Joel Embiid, Jimmy Butler, Derrick Rose. The list goes on the injuries. Russell Westbrook. I can just keep going. But I think you get my point. Limit the regular season to 65 games, and we probably may not be having this discussion on how many injuries are in the NBA Finals. Now, there are instances where it's just a freak accident, and that may have happened on any game. But they limit the back-to-backs. They help with the travel. And it's helped. If you limit the regular season to 65 games, you can't tell me that doesn't help the players with more rest, health. We all care about the playoffs. The NBA has the huge criticism of the NBA is there's no sense of urgency in the regular season. They just coast, they tank, or the Warriors are going to go to the finals, so they'll get blown out by 30 in Phoenix to the Suns, who we all know they're better than the Suns, because they really don't care. They want to go to the finals. This is when they want to play, in June. They don't want to play the Suns. They don't want to go to Milwaukee all the time. I used to be able to use Milwaukee as a terrible reference, but now they're a great team. But my point is, limit the regular season. There's no need for that. And then there actually would be a little bit more of a sense of urgency, because instead of 82 games to make the playoffs, you have 65. You have to kind of get to work quicker. It would create more sense of urgency, but yet less injuries. Whew. So that's my NBA take. We also had, I heard this comparison, and I'm a diehard UFC fan. There's a lot of great podcasts coming out this week. I have some big guests booked, and I love the UFC. And one of my favorite sports quotes of all time is from Dana White, the president of the UFC. You may have, in a neighborhood, I grew up playing a lot of kickball, tackle football in the yard where there's like an abandoned lot. You didn't have a house, and there was glass. It's dumb, but we played. Street pickup basketball, right? But if a fight broke out, and there's been plenty of fights where you have people playing football and the people waiting to get next are playing basketball on the hoop. I luckily grew up with a bunch of people in my neighborhood, so we could do a lot of manhunt and all these things. So you can have all these activities going on. Kickball, football, basketball. But if a fight broke out, everybody stops and watches the fight. And that's what Dana White was expressing. I think it was like an interview. And he said everyone stops to watch a fight, no matter what you're doing. Whether it's to break it up, whether it's to watch it. It's human nature. The Gladiators, we all remember that. Great movie, by the way, Maximus. I think it's in our DNA. We gravitate towards conflict. It's the fight or flight, but when you're not in the fight, you want to see what happens. If it's someone you care about, or just it's a fight that breaks out, you drop the football, you drop the basketball, you drop the kickball, you stop playing manhunt, and you're like, oh, crap, they're fighting right there. And everyone turns their heads, and nowadays, like you'll see on Twitter, is the kids will flip out their phone and they'll start filming it on YouTube or World Star. They have to get that fight. They have to get that fight. Forget being late to class, I need to get that fight. So there's this huge aura when it comes to fighting and when it comes to conflict that the human race is drawn to. And I think that's what makes the UFC so special. Now, does it have its flaws? Of course. Every business, every industry has its flaws, to the NBA, to the NFL, to MLS, to MLB. Every sport, franchise, organization, business has flaws, some bigger than others. But that's the one thing that the UFC has that no other sport has, is the magnetism, again referencing Rashad, is the magnetism of the human race drawn to conflict, drawn to a fight. People that never watched the UFC before, aren't even into fighting themselves. If you're at the beach with some friends, if you're out at the club, a fight breaks out, everyone turns their head, gets their phones out, or at least are watching it. That's special. That's just something that is just in our DNA that we all have. Of course, there's outliers. Some just may run away, look away, are disgusted by it. But in general, we all are drawn to some type of conflict. So when there's this huge upset, right? Anthony Joshua gets upsetted. Huge congrats to knocking out Anthony Joshua. We all wanted to see the Deontay Wilder fight. So when I've heard this concept of boxing is making a comeback. I've heard that statement. And the UFC doesn't have Conor, it doesn't have Ronda, it doesn't have Brock. Again, if you are a diehard UFC fan, you know they don't just rely on those stars. But that, again, speaking to the general public, they don't have those guys. So is boxing making a comeback over the UFC? Is it becoming more popular than the UFC again? My answer would be no. Because when you, like I said in the beginning of the episode, you need to have a face, you need to have an identity for something. There's no face or identity with just boxing. And by that, I'm not even talking about the specific athlete. I'm talking about, okay, you won the world title. To what? There's just 100 different types of belts. The MMA and other different organizations, the PFL, Bellator, Island Fights, ONE FC, bare knuckle fighting. But the thing is, Combat Night. But the thing is, most people think UFC when you think MMA. You have the UFC belt. You just won the heavyweight belt. Daniel Cormier is not thinking about another heavyweight champion in the UFC unless it's an interim title because he had to step out. He's thinking, I'm the champion. John Jones is thinking, I'm the champion. Holloway's thinking, I'm the champion. Khabib is thinking, I'm the champion. With boxing, you don't know who is the champion of what because there's so many different belts, So many different organizations, so many different abbreviations. It's not all under one branch. And there's a lot of politics involved. And to get the fight that we want, we may have to wait years for. Pacquiao, Mayweather, Wilder versus Joshua still hasn't happened. Fury versus Wilder, I thought Fury won hands down. I guess if somehow the judges thought it was a draw, which I thought is the new scoreboard theory would have fixed that. And we didn't even get the immediate rematch. What? How do you not get an immediate rematch off what most people thought was a robbery? I just don't get that. And I think it got confirmed now. I think Wilder confirmed it on Twitter. And I think we will see that fight come to fruition again, the rematch. But the fact that it was a question on whether or not we'd ever get it again is why I don't think the boxing world is greater than the MMA world right now. Now, it has more history, more icons. Muhammad Ali is the biggest, arguably the biggest sports icon of all time, no matter the sport. Like you got Jordan, Tiger, Babe Ruth, Muhammad Ali. Conor McGregor's famous. He's not on Muhammad Ali's level. Royce Gracie's extremely famous. Not on Conor McGregor's level, but for what he did to the sport. He's not on Muhammad Ali's level. So I think boxing has the historical side, the historical evidence to say they're bigger than MMA. But right now when I hear boxing is going to overthrow MMA again, I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced because if I don't know what belt you just won, I'm not convinced. I'm not. Until the best fight the best all the time, not convinced. Now, I think the UFC needs to tweak some things. I think they need to make it more, not like a, it shouldn't be an event necessarily. I think it's, how do I word this? It's hard to have a sustainable product when your stars are like the main selling point. If Conor McGregor doesn't fight, I know a bunch of guys at my job won't watch it. Now, they'll watch the NBA Finals and probably no matter the Super Bowl, no matter who's in it, but they won't watch a UFC fight unless it's a fighter they know. So there's some critiquing they have to do, of course. Like I said, any industry, any business has to do that. But my point is, boxing will never, I don't think, is overtaking the UFC again. I think MMA is the trend right now. And I may be wrong. I think boxing, if they fix some things and it's not as, I feel it's corrupt, very political, very confusing. If they can tweak these things and they can fix these things, boxing may have a resurgence where it may overthrow UFC. But for right now, I still think it's UFC. I still think it's UFC. Wow. Again, guys, download and subscribe to this podcast. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Max Van Auken. I have one more thing before I let you guys go. And that's that. LeBron James and the Lakers. I've been mentioning his name. I'm a huge LeBron guy. Everyone knows I'm a huge LeBron guy, right? If Kevin Durant goes to the Golden State Warriors, like I said, I like to theorize. It's easy to reflect. I like to theorize. If LeBron James stays in LA, which he will, he has his contract. He's not a free agent. But I mean, if Kevin Durant leaves the Warriors, goes to the Knicks. And the whole critique of the NBA, criticism, is parity. What was so funny is how bad the Lakers have been right now to the press, to the public. Just on fire. Everyone hates the Los Angeles Lakers. They're terrible, terrible front office. And I agree with them. They haven't been ran correctly in a while. And just every day is a story. Every day it looks bad. Who's this? Why this head coach? Why this assistant coach? Really? Jason Kidd? Is LeBron James fully committed? Do they free agents even want to go to LA? Who's running this team? Is it Rob Pelinka? Is it Jeannie Buss? Is it Kobe? Is it Kobe's friend? Is it Rich Paul, LeBron's agent? Is it LeBron? Does Magic Johnson still have a say? You get my point. There's a lot of chaos. But what's so interesting and what makes the NBA so special is if they get Jimmy Butler, and Jimmy Butler's a free agent. He plays for the 76ers. If he goes to the Lakers, they didn't trade for him, so you still have Brandon Ingram, Kyle Kuzma, all this young commodities, as well as LeBron James and Jimmy Butler. And let's just say, I just said how well DeMarcus Cousins played. The Lakers, you know what? We're not getting Kevin Durant. We're not getting Kawhi Leonard. We're not getting Kyrie Irving. We're not getting Bradley Beal. We're not getting this guy. We can get DeMarcus Cousins. Let's take a risk on DeMarcus Cousins. Now, do I suggest they do that? Shouldn't be your first option. Like I said, those other guys should be your first option. Secure Jimmy Butler. But if they were to acquire DeMarcus Cousins after some more time of resting, more time of playing, and he has his feet under him, maybe not the DeMarcus Cousins of old, but still an all-star, still very talented, big in the game, great IQ. So now you have LeBron James, Jimmy Butler, DeMarcus Cousins, with all these young talents that they couldn't trade for because they didn't get Anthony Davis. You're telling me right now, and I guess I'll say it, bold take alert, LeBron James, Jimmy Butler, DeMarcus Cousins, and these young assets would have an opportunity to win the NBA title. Am I saying they're the favorites? Absolutely not. But if Kevin Durant leaves the Warriors and the Lakers acquire free agents and are able to keep this young nucleus of players, Lonzo Ball, Kyle Kuzma, Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart, and then keep LeBron James, of course, Jimmy Butler and DeMarcus Cousins, that team has a shot to win the title. And you heard it here first. You heard it here first. Because I know everyone hates the Lakers right now. I've even criticized the Lakers. I've even criticized LeBron. He should take notes off Tom Brady and how he leads his guys. Actually rally behind your guys. Focus on one thing. I'm telling you, I think the Lakers have an opportunity. Are they the favorites? No. If Kevin Durant stays, absolutely not. But if he leaves and there's more parity, I would love to bet my money on LeBron James with two guys that can really play with Jimmy Butler, DeMarcus Cousins, and a young core that's getting better. With the fire lit under them. With LeBron James being criticized all season long, all off season long. A motivated LeBron with two great veterans with a young nucleus. Don't count them out. You heard it here first. Don't count them out. Guys, what an episode. Like I said, so thankful for you guys tuning in. So thankful for you guys subscribing to the podcast. Please spread the word. Probably next episode, like I said, I'm going to have a lot of episodes coming up. I'll give you a little teaser here. I have a great guest coming in next episode in the MMA world. So stay tuned, download, subscribe.